Pace versus consistency. What do they mean? How do they affect your race? And which should you focus on if you want to win? In this video, we're going to break down the differences between the two by answering these questions, attempting to figure out which is most important for a successful race result, and actually seeing the differences and implications in action during a Porsche Cup race that I recently had at Mugello. So just a disclaimer, I'm still fairly new to iRacing, so take everything that I say with a grain of salt. I'm still learning myself, so if you feel that I said anything wrong throughout the video, please don't be afraid, leave a comment down below, tell me how or why I'm wrong. I'm always happy to learn something new. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's head into the video. Question number 1. What do they mean? The definition of pace refers to the quickness over one lap. Essentially how fast you can do one lap, driving flat out on the limit all the time. The definition of consistency, according to the Cambridge English Dictionary, is the quality of always behaving or performing in a similar way. In racing, we use this term to refer to a driver's ability to recreate the same lap over and over again, irrespective of how fast said lap is. For example, let's say a track has an average lap time of 50 seconds. A truly consistent driver will be able to recreate multiple 50-second laps in succession, but he will also be able to recreate multiple 51 or 52-second laps consistently. This means that a truly consistent driver has the ability to choose and dictate his own pace. Meanwhile, an inconsistent driver does not. Question number 2. How do they affect your race? A race is more akin to a marathon as opposed to a sprint, even if it's a short race, much like this one that we're about to watch, which is only 13 laps long. It's still very important to keep the bigger picture in mind and not push the car to its absolute limits all the time, especially in the start when your tires are still cold. If you have good pace but poor consistency, you will most likely lose to someone who has lesser pace than you but is able to keep his lap times more consistent. This means that in essence, having good pace but bad consistency will most likely yield a net negative result for your race. Meanwhile, having a below average pace but being able to stay consistent with it will most likely yield you a net positive result in your race. Question number 3. Which should you focus on if you want to win? Ideally, you should focus on both, that being running at a quick pace consistently. But ask yourself these two simple questions. Are all fast drivers consistent? And are all consistent drivers fast? In short, over the period of a race, you're most likely not quick if you're unable to keep your lap times consistent, as that means you're losing time making mistakes. On the other hand, you could be keeping a consistent pace, but that pace is too slow for your competitors. So in theory, every fast driver is consistent, but not every consistent driver is fast, if you catch my drift. Referring to the previous example, if the average lap time is 50 seconds, but you are only able to run 51 to 52 seconds consistently, you'll get beaten by someone who can run 50 seconds consistently. On the flip side, however, if you can occasionally run a 50-second lap, but you are unable to stay consistent, you'll most likely be beaten by someone who can consistently run 51-second laps, even though his fastest laps are a whole second slower than yours. So just to recap, being consistent is being fast, but being fast is not necessarily being consistent. If you want to win more races, focus on being consistent and the speed will follow. Hopefully so should the results. Okay, so now that I feel as if I've yapped enough to be happy, let's jump into the race and see these concepts that I've just explained in action. So here we are on the starting grid, about to go out. We are car number 6, qualified in P3. Ahead of us are car number 1 and 2, so they are the highest rated cars, as you can see on the delta there. Now, it's really important to keep your eyes on the delta on the bottom right here, as this is a replay and we don't really have the rear view mirror to go off. So we can't really tell how close people are behind us if we're not looking at the delta, but the delta will tell a great story here. So off the start, as you can see, we're pretty close to P1 and P2. I mean, they're clearly faster cars, as you can see. I mean, from the T4, T5, now coming up to T6, I think. They are just driving away from us. We are still on cold tires, but they can manage them way better than we do, and already the gap is opened up to 9/10 to the leader and 7/10 to P2. Now over a second to the leader. Both of these guys are very, very eager, so we'll see P2 just absolutely throwing a flyer up into Bucciani, losing it because we're still on cold tires, and that's obviously going to compromise his exit. We're gonna get a nice little run on him, simply because we're not super eager. We know it's still the start. We're just gonna tuck up right next to him here. I'm not really thinking of going for anything too crazy into turn one. I just want to brake, take my line. If he defends, we'll sit behind him. If he tries anything crazy, we'll try and capitalize. And obviously, you know, he overcooks it, locks up his fronts, and he gives us P2 for free. So, cardinal rule number 1, never push when your tires are so cold, because that will happen. He already had loss of grip because he threw it up in Buceni on P1. And yeah, so P1 makes a mistake here now. So we kind of get into the groove, studying him a little bit, trying to figure out where I'm quicker than him, where he's quicker than me. And, you know, very disappointingly, it seems that I'm pretty much slower than this guy everywhere. Because coming up to the end of lap 2 here, the gap is 1.3 seconds. So that's already 4 or 5 tenths that he's gained on us out of nowhere. Coming up to the end of the third lap, it's 1.8 seconds. So this guy is absolutely driving away from us. Coming up to the end of the fourth lap, it's 2.5 seconds. So in lap 5, he's pulled 3 seconds, around 8 tenths per lap. So fast forward to coming up to the end of lap 5 here. We're coming up to Buceni, which is the last corner. We're 3 seconds away from this guy, okay? 3 seconds. Now look at the delta. We see a plume of smoke on the left, delta going down on the right, and he's made a mistake. So he's compromised absolutely everything. All that work that he's just done, pushing way too hard, trying to get a good time, he loses all of that, and he gifts us P1 absolutely for free. Now, I just want to take a second. I just want to pause real quick the video here, and I want you to look at the top left. There you can see the fastest lap and the previous lap that we did. Notice that car number 1 and car number 2, so it's Antonio and Mikal. So Antonio has the fastest lap of 1:53 flat, and Mikal has the fastest lap of 1:53.1. We only have the fastest lap of 1:53.5. So these guys are half a second per best lap quicker than us, which means on raw pace, they beat us 9 times out of 10. So as you can see now, we fast forward to the end of lap 7, beginning of lap 8, and we've only pulled 6 tenths of a gap on this guy. Fast forward to the end of lap 8, and he's caught up to us. He's 3 tenths of a second behind us. He's right on our bumper. So I know he's eager to get by because he wants to be in front of me. He might pull a move here, so I don't steer in. I keep my steering angle really open. He dives in. I go for the cutback because we're going way slower than him, and we get a decent exit. Now, we end up side by side. We don't get that much of a better exit than he does, so we're pretty much matched side by side. Side drafting is not really that big in these cars, so we're gonna stay side by side coming all the way down into turn 1. Now I'm not thinking of throwing anything crazy. I know he's right next to me. I just want to take my regular braking line. He plays a really nice defensive move, parks it on the apex, and that's job done. He's taken P1 again. So you can only guess what's gonna happen now. He's faster than us, he's in front of us, so he's gonna drive away, right? So he's 5 tenths of a second away from us, coming up to the start of lap 10. And now we're just gonna fast forward, coming up to the end of lap 10. He's still only 5 tenths of a second in front of us. Why do you think that is? Why do you think he can't get away from us? It's because he's chewed up all his tires going absolutely flat out, which means he's much more susceptible to making a mistake right now in the last 2 laps. And lo and behold, he loses the car, snaps back on him, and we take P1 for free. This is the fastest guy on track. He's the fastest car on track. He still has the fastest lap by over a tenth of a second compared to the number 2 rated car, which is Mikal. So coming up to the end of lap 11, starting the penultimate lap pretty much, lap 12, we're 8 tenths of a second in front of him. We've managed to save our tires, we've managed to maintain our pace properly, and coming up now to the start of the final lap, we've actually pulled a 1.5 second gap here, and Antonio has actually lost his second place to Mikal. Mikal is the guy that had spun out earlier. So we're actually going to come up to the last corner here of the last lap, 1.2 seconds ahead of the 2 quickest cars on track. So I'm 4 tenths of a second slower than these cars, and we're actually going to come around this final corner here and win this race. And so, just a recap of the race here, some really interesting statistics. So, if we have a look at the best lap, we can see that our friend here, Antonio, was the fastest car on track by a long margin. He got a fastest lap of 53.063, and we got a fastest lap of 53.423. So, that's a whole 4/10 of a second that we are slower than this guy. However, the most important thing that we need to look at is the average lap time. So I had an average lap time of 154.465. Meanwhile, Antonio and Mikal both had an average lap time of 154.5. That means that over the course of 13 laps, on average, I was actually a 1/10 of a second faster than them. So just because Antonio and Mikal can run laps that are 4/10 quicker than mine, when it comes to a race where they need to be consistent in order to maintain a good overall time, they were unable to beat me out due to them not being consistent. So this just goes to show and proves the point that the more you focus on being consistent, irrespective of how fast you want to be, the speed will come. Focus on being consistent first, and then you will be faster second. However, if you focus on being fast first, you're most likely not gonna win the races that you could be winning if you only focused on being consistent. And that's pretty much the end of the video. Like I said in the beginning, if you think that I said some incorrect things or you disagree with something that I've said, please don't forget to leave a comment down below and educate me. If you did like it, leave a like below. That really helps out. And yeah, I'll hopefully see you in the next one. I hate outros so much. They're so cringe.